Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. G.I. Joe here. Today I wanted to go over the PTS patch notes for the 6.3.0 PTS patch. This is for the Flames of Oblivion DLC as part of the Gates of Oblivion year-long adventure. This DLC adds 2 new 4-player dungeons to tackle, Black Drake Villa and the Cauldron, in addition to several new item sets, collectibles, achievements, and furnishings. Update 29, the latest base game update free for all players, brings a number of significant changes and new features. First and foremost, we've updated the entire champion point system with a new UI and all new stars to choose for your characters. Equipped armor pieces also now passively augment your character's effectiveness, and you can view additional combat stats in the advanced stats UI. I did a video about that earlier. Housing enthusiasts will be excited to utilize the new feature for fast travel outside your home. So instead of porting to the inside of your house, you can now port to the front door on the outside of your house, so you don't have to have another load screen. They're going to copy the characters over this week for PCNA. Here's the table of contents. The 2 new dungeons, they kind of showed those on the live reveal. They all have unique achievement awards, unique skin, memento, titles, stuff like that. Now we're going to get into the new item sets for the new dungeons. That should be Black Drake Villa. The light armor piece has spell critical, spell damage, max magicka, and the 5-piece adds 708 critical, spell critical, and increases your critical damage by 4%. This bonus doubles to 1416 critical and 8% when you are under 75% health, and the bonus quadruples to 2832 spell critical and 16% increased damage when you are under 50% health. I could see this being useful for a vampire spect magicka class, especially since part of some of the stuff that you can use is the toggle with the vampire. You can lower your health, so you can actually get yourself closer to that 50% health anyways. So that looks nice. The medium armor is Inras Wrath. It adds weapon damage, critical, weapon damage, and the 5-piece. Dealing damage with a light or heavy attack grants you a stack of Burning Heart for 5 seconds, up to 5 stacks. When you have 5 stacks, you generate an aura of warmth, granting you major berserk, increase your damage by 10%. While you have an aura of wrath, allies within 12 meters of you gain minor berserk, reducing or increasing their damage done by 5%. It's a pretty nice, it looks like a nice set for PvE, maybe even PvP, depending on how it works, but I have to test that one out. Looks interesting. The heavy armor set is Drake's Rush. Adds health, stamina, and when you bash an enemy, you and up to 11 group members within 15 meters of you gain major heroism for 12 seconds, granting you 3 ultimate every 1.5 seconds. This effect can occur once every 18 seconds. So that's a 12-second uptime with a 6-second downtime. So with this set, you will have a 66% uptime on the major heroism. For what it's worth. The monster mask is Incretus Behemoth. It adds max magicka, and dealing flame damage to an enemy grants you Behemoth's aura for 12 seconds that reaches up to 12 meters. You and up to 11 group members in the aura reduce flame damage taken by 5%. Enemies in the aura increase their flame damage taken by 5%. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds. So, again, you've got 12-second uptime and you got a 15-second duration, so you have 3-second downtime. I can see this for mag DKs and PvP. That'd probably be really good because of the Flame Staff Destro, and DKs have a lot of flame damage. So I think that one looks good for PvP. Now under the Cauldron, we have Unleashed Ritualist, the light armor set, which adds Max Magicka, 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 and the 5-piece dealing damage to an enemy applies a Ritualist mark to them for 10 seconds. Enemies with your mark take an additional 16% from your summoned pets. I think this one would be very good for replacing the monster set that does Necropotence. You know, instead of giving you more max magicka for your pets that you have out, it will allow you to do more damage. So I think that one looks kind of nice. And the developer comment says this includes pets summoned from other item sets such as Mad Tinkerer and Defile. I'm assuming it also takes the Maw of the Infernal as well. Maybe even the Ice Wraith from Icy Conjure. Not exactly sure. It says this does not include pet-like effects, such as the Cliff Racer from the Dive ability or Honor from Cold Harbor's favorite set. So I think what they're saying is that if it's a skill that you're using, like the bugs, the flesh flies, all that stuff that you've got in the Warden's toolkits, I don't know. I don't think that that's applying. I think it's from a pet that does its own damage, like the Nightblade Shade might also, take that into account. Honor from Cold Harbor's favorite, that he just pops up and then he does his thing and he goes away. He's not actually summoned per se. So that one looks interesting. It might look good for Maelstrom or Vedashrand's type build. So the medium armor for Dagon's Dominion adds weapon damage, max stamina, weapon damage, and the 5-piece adds 492 weapon damage to your area of effect abilities. This looks interesting. This set adds 492 weapon damage to area of effect healing abilities as well, such as Vigor and Soothing Spores as well. So this one, I definitely think that this one could possibly be used for anything with dual wield, because you've got Blade Cloak, you've got Spin to Win. Your bow has Endless Hail. You got Caltrops that you normally run, so a dual wield bow build would actually be really nice. You could also throw on the ultimate from the dual wield passive, and that would give you the Rend, I think it's called. The ultimate from the dual wield is an AoE attack. So I could definitely see this. The bow has scatter shots, got Endless Hail. So this looks like it might be a pretty good set to, if you're speccing for weapon damage in PvP, this might be a good one to run. The heavy armor set, Fool Killer's Ward. Adds armor, and max health, and activating block while in combat places a damage shield on you and 3 group members within 18 meters for 2 seconds that absorbs 4,000 direct damage. Now that's direct damage. That is not AoE damage. So it has to be directly at you. If a damage shield breaks, the wearer of the shield restores 5680 magic and stam. So if you block and you're the one who casts the damage shield and your healer gets hit and it absorbs all that, then he or she's the one that gets the magic and stamina. This effect can occur once every 30 seconds if a damage shield broke. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds if no damage shield broke. So you've got a 2-second uptime on a damage shield, and you have an 8-second downtime on that damage shield if it doesn't break. If it breaks, you've got a 28-second downtime on that damage shield. This is just, I don't. I think that's probably going to be changed. I think 30 seconds is too long, especially for that amount, 4,000, and it's direct damage, right? So chances are, if you're the tank and you're wearing this, you're the one that's getting the direct damage, because any area of effect, attacks, it's not going to absorb that anyway. So, this is kind of, now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more, this is kind of a useless set. I definitely think it needs to be reworked, but we haven't tested it out either, so I'm not gonna bash it too far. So the monster set is Baron Zawdress. It adds, so it's basically got a tri-stat on there, and applying a status effect to an enemy grants you a stack of ambition for 10 seconds, up to 3 stacks max. When you gain 3 stacks, the stacks are removed and you gain 3 ultimate. On gaining the ultimate, you cannot gain additional stacks of ambition for 2 seconds. So this again is a status effect. So this is burning, concussion, chilled, poisoned, diseased, a couple of the new ones that are out. That's the status effect. So you would have to apply a status effect to an enemy to get that. One stack would last for 10 seconds. So you would have to apply 3 different status effects at that time in order to do that and get that 3 stacks max. Here's the other thing I got. Is it when you gain the 3 stacks, you only get 3 ultimate, or is it 3 ultimate per stack? So a total of 9 ultimate, or is it just 1 per stack? So now you've just got 3 extra ultimate. I don't know. It'd be interesting to look at. These are collectibles, outfit styles, and dies. New titles, furnishings. Can't really see those, so I'm not going to go over them too much. The motifs who don't know. All right, the base game champion point system update. I'll go more into detail once I get into the PTS and actually, go through. I'll make a video on what everything does, how it looks. We revamped the entire CP system, updated UI, and all new stars to choose. The goal for this change included several factors. The new system encourages horizontal progression over vertical progression. The new champion system reduces how many passives are on a character at one time, reducing the calculations per combat action. And it is essential to the healthy character progression. The revamped champion system has far greater flexibility for expansion in the future. The constellations have been renamed from the Mage, Warrior, and Thief to Warfare, Fitness, and Craft. Constellations have been reduced from 9 to 3, but the variety of stars available to spend points in has greatly increased. The stars are interconnected in a way that spending enough points to unlock the bonus awarded from a star will also unlock the path to its connected stars. Stars within constellations are categorized under 2 main types. Non-slottable. These are the stars in which they give you their noted stats and do not need further interaction from you. And then slottable. These are the stars which give you their noted stats and must be added to the new champion bar to activate the bonus listed. We've added a new champion bar at the top of the constellation. They showed that. You can swap out the stars. If you haven't seen the reveal video, I'll put a link to it up in the corner. The CP cap update has been lifted. You can now spend up to 3,600 skill points. That's a metric F-ton. We've adjusted the rate at which you gain CP to accommodate for the cap lift. You still only earn champion points at level 50 or higher, but as with the original system, you can spend them regardless your level once you have earned them. All characters have had their base health increased to 16,000, up from 8,744. Basically doubled your health. And their magic and stamina has increased to 1,200, up from 7,958. So you've got 4,000 extra magic and stam, and you've got 7,000 extra health. These changes were made to offset the loss of the 20% stat increase. Characters will also now take 15% reduced damage at base. This is because the mitigation in the champion point system is no longer there. Characters will also start with 20 weapon and spell damage at level 1 and gain an additional 20 per level, up to 1,000 at level 50. So if you're max level, you will automatically have 1,000 weapon and spell damage. Armor changes. All right, so there's been a lot of talk about this. All right, and just from the reveal, again, you know, people were all in an uproar on this. We have to really test it and see exactly what they're meaning. So, equipped armor pieces now passively augment your character's effectiveness at base game or at baseline. In addition to their purchasable passives, their effects are now denoted in the armor section of the skill line and unlocked immediately upon unlocking the skill line itself. The light armor bonuses reduces your damage taken from magical, which is magic, flame, frost, and shock, by 1% per piece worn. You also reduce the cost of roll dodge by 3%. I mean, you're in pajamas. You should be able to just roll fairly easy. Increases your movement speed while sneaking at 5% per piece. So you're going to move faster. You're obviously not wearing heavier armor like plate or leather, so you can move freely. It reduces the cost of break free and reduces the cost of bash. So pretty much all your aerobics and gymnastic type things, they're going to be cheaper because you're not encumbered by football pads. So it does have some penalties though. It increases your damage taken from martial or physical attacks, poison, disease, and bleed damage by 1%. You're wearing paper. You're wearing a dress. Yeah, I mean, you're going to cut yourself. How it goes. Increases the cost of block by 3% because you don't have anything else to kind of steady your block up, your body up against. You don't have a huge shield, or you can't brace yourself as much in cloth than you can in other armor. And it decreases your damage done by bash by 1%. Again, if you run into something wearing football pads, it's going to hurt more than it's going to hurt the object more than if you ran into it with just your clothes on. Makes sense from a logics perspective. The medium armor bonuses. It reduces the cost of sprint by 1% per piece. It reduces the cost of sneak by 5% per piece. Reduce the cost of block by 3 per piece. And reduces your damage taken from area of effect by 2% or 2 seconds after you roll dodge. But it increases your movement speed by 2% while immune to crowd control. You break free, you get snared, you break free. Your movement speed is increased by 2% while that immunity lasts. Reduces your damage taken from area of effect attacks by 2% after you roll dodge. It's not a static area of effect reduction. You have to roll dodge, and then for 2 seconds you get the reduction. Also, none of that has to deal with direct damage. So if you got a two-hander that comes and wails on you, even if you roll dodge, that sword is going to hit with its regular damage. It's not going to be reduced. So the heavy armor bonuses. Reduces your damage taken from martial attacks by 1% per piece worn. Increases the amount of damage blocked by 1% per piece. Increases damage done by bash by 3% per piece. And reduces your damage taken while immune to crowd control by 2% per piece. So again, you're a tank, right? You're in, metal. You're in a metal sphere. Of course, you're not gonna, you're not gonna get a paper cut, right? Obviously, when you run at something, it's gonna hurt a little bit more because you got all that mass behind you. One of the things is too heavy armor penalties. It increases your damage taken from magical attacks. I talked about this in the other video too. Light electricity and metal are really, really nice together, right? That's how it goes. So if you got a Sork out there hitting you with lightning, you're probably going to get hit a little bit harder because it's metal that you're wearing and it's going to shock you. Reduces your movement speed of sprint by 1%. Yeah, it's heavy. I don't know how many times I'm running through dungeons and I got my DPS and healer running ahead of me. I'm like, I have heavy armor on, right? I can't afford to sprint through everything because I need my stamina. So it also increases the cost of roll dodge by 3%. Yeah, because when you roll, you have to get back up on your feet. It's hard to get back up on your feet wearing football gear. It is. And increases the size of detection area while sneaking by 10% per piece. So yeah, if you've got 7 pieces of heavy armor and you're sneaking around, 70% likely to be spotted. Why? Because light reflects off armor. It's loud. It clanks. So I mean, come on. Logistically or logically speaking, this makes sense. The above changes were done to help increase the effect of the armor plate on your build by augmenting your core mechanics, such as break free, roll dodge, and sprint, in ways that were not already apparent. Additionally, the rock, paper, scissors effect. The armor was originally meant to follow that could have more sharp effects in PvP situations, where light armor is stronger than heavier, but weaker versus medium, and heavy is stronger versus medium, so therefore medium is weaker versus heavy. We also tried to avoid outright buffing the exact playstyles that already exist in some armor types. For example, light armor has much more freedom with most of its stamina cost, but is less effective against outright soaking damage. Heavy armor is now slower but bulkier, and medium armor is more slippery but less sharp bonuses, and as it has no drawbacks. Okay, so I want to talk about this a little bit because there's a lot of conversation already about now it's going to be medium armor meta, right? So this and this. Heavy armor and light armor both have reduction in damage taken, right? And that's a static reduction. You don't have to do something to get that reduction, right? So you can stand there and get hit by a sword and heavy armor, and you don't have to do anything. You don't have to block, you don't have to roll dodge, you don't have to jump, you don't have to, anything. Light armor, the same thing with magic, right? You don't have to block, you don't have to shield, you don't have to do anything. The magic damage you get hit with, it's already reduced. Medium has none of that. All it has is you reduce area of effect. So if someone puts, a big pool of poison on the ground, I'm going to get hit with that because it's area of effect. I can only reduce that damage if I roll through it. So, yeah, I could roll through a wall of fire, or I could roll through caltrops and get 2% reduction for 2 seconds. But this doesn't even say per piece. This is just 2%. It's not per piece. So, and the same thing with the movement speed while immune. It's not per piece. That's just a flat 2%. So while, yes, these have some, you take more damage from martial and you take more damage from magical, right? You also reduce half of the damage in the game on both of those. So the only thing that medium armor has is it helps you move around the battlefield. And if you run around and they can't target you, you can't be hit. That's the only thing it does. And if you roll, you get an area of effect decrease by 2% for 2 seconds. So you roll through the AoE. Right? That's it. But direct damage attacks, nope, you can't reduce that. So, everyone's like, oh, the medium armor meta. I don't see that, only because all this is it's just moving around the battlefield. So these guys are your tanks, these guys are your cavalry, and these guys are your artillery, basically, is what it is. In today's parlance, this would be your cavalry, this would be your tanks, and this would be your artillery or Apaches, whatever, right? What do you do against tanks? You throw in your infantry, right? That's what you do. How you defeat a tank, you either use a gun or a gunship, or in Lee's scenario, you bring in infantry and they pop the hatch and they drop a grenade down there. That's what they do, right? You got artillery in the back just lobbing mortars around, but they're inconsistent. Unless you're really dialed in, you have to have the kill radius. That's how you do it. But a tank can also hammer over there as well. So I don't see, and I don't buy into this medium armor meta. Just from a logical standpoint, it doesn't make sense to me. So now we're going to go over the passives. So light armor, concentration. The passive now grants 939 spell pen per piece of light armor worn, rather than 4884 when wearing 5 pieces. So you wear 5 pieces, it's roughly about the same. So 939. Well, let me bring up my calculator. 939 times 5 equals 4695. You're going to get 4695 spell pen with 2 points in the passive versus 4884. So you got a little bit of a reduction there. Prodigy. This now grants 0.5%, 1% spell critical per piece of light armor worn, rather than the 10% when wearing 5 pieces or more. So yes, that's a little bit of a nerf. You get half the spell critical if you're wearing 5 pieces of light. And spell warding increased the resistance gain per rank, 726 up from 363. So you got a bigger buff when it came to the spell resistance. Medium armor, agility. This passive now grants 2% weapon damage per piece of armor worn, rather than the 15% when 5 pieces are worn. So, 5 pieces times 2 is 10. So we're getting 10%. We took a 5% reduction as well in our weapon damage. Dexterity decreased the amount of weapon critical granted to 1% per piece of medium armor, down from 1.5 per piece. So, we lost 2.5% on that. Yeah. Heavy armor. The passive now increases your healing taken by 1% for every 2 or 1 pieces of heavy armor worn. Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's 1%. Now increases your healing taken by 1% for every piece of heavy armor worn, rather than the 4 to 8% when wearing 5 pieces or more. That doesn't make sense. That's got to be a typo. Resolve. Decrease the amount of armor granted per piece of heavy armor worn to 343, down from 363. So it's a little bit of a... So 343 times 5 is 1715. So 363 times 363 5 equals... See, it's like 100 less on resistance per piece. So, or 100 total resistance, but Revitalize. The passive now increases the resources restored from your fully charged heavy attacks by 2 to 4% per piece of heavy armor worn, rather than the 12 to 25% when wearing 5 pieces. So again, wearing 5 pieces, that's 20% of resources for fully charged heavy attacks. So all of the stats went down a little bit, right? Advanced stats. You can now view advanced combat stats, which is great because the passives or the penetration and stuff like that we didn't have. It's great because we'll be able to show more of that. Again, you can fast travel to your front door. You don't have to travel into your house. You can preview all your furnishings. We're not going to talk about the homes because we don't have any to look at. Again, with the furnishings, we don't have anything there either that we could really look at. There's a new antiquity. The collectibles, again, it was on the reveal. System mail. So a lot of people, before the cap to the transmute crystals, they would, do their, Cyrodiil reward, tier 1 rewards, or battlegrounds. They do their dailies, and they would just have all of that mail sitting in the bank because they couldn't afford to lose the transmute crystals. So, now when you log in, anything that's in your mailbox, you'll have 30 days. Otherwise, it's going to be deleted, and everything that's attached with it as well. So that's that. There's a prologue quest. Again, there are 2 character templates, max level and level 25. And both starting to Deshaun. Okay. Champion system. The tooltips for the champion point system are still under adjustment, and many will currently display information that is not entirely encompassing, maybe mislabeled, or will not update their values in real time. So apparently this is a bug that they know about. Some tooltips are not reporting their total bonus. Okay. Champion point stars may be difficult or impossible to interact with based on your screen resolution. They're investigating a way to solve this, but you can run into the situation. You can try to go to your settings, video, interface, and use the custom scale to on, then adjust the slider until the stars cannot interact with become usable. The champion point shield master is not applying to crystallized shields or sun shield or their morphs. It does not affect the abilities that grant a damage shield as an auxiliary effect, such as ferocious leap or shielded assaults, which is intentional. But it will affect ones that their primary purpose is the damage shield, bone shield, igneous shield, sun shield, crystallized shield. But when you get the damage shield for the cleave and the two-hander, it's not going to affect that. So within the dungeons, they fixed a visual effect for St. Olms and Silent Sanatorium. Sunspire, the Alkosh Will's Storm Leap ability will no longer damage player characters outside of the telegraphed area. So if you're getting hit while we're not standing in stupid, it will no longer hit you because you're not in it stupid. The breath will no longer appear to be angled over people's heads. Okay. Abnormal textures. Achievements, antiquities, dungeons. Okay, here we go. Unhallowed Grave. Neighbor. Reduce the overall health of these enemies. The Forgotten Deadeyes. I don't know how much it was reduced. Hopefully not too much. Reduce the radius and knockback distance of the Icy Salvo. Okay. And grapple will be used less often. Okay. I know some people are having problems with the grapple. Chilling Comment now has an increased number of safe platforms. Okay. Because I think there were only like 2 or 3 that you could go to at any one time. And if you didn't see them, maybe it was bugging out, or there was just so much AoE from the other mobs, you wouldn't see it, and so you get schwacked. So anyways, Keeper of the Kiln. Reduce the number of additional monsters during this fight. Okay, less ads. The Fiery Vent. The Fiery Vent phases will now occur at more reliable intervals. It increases the warm-up period, so when the steam starts to rise before the fire, increase the time before the vents would cause death. So you're slowly going to boil to death before the flames actually hit you. And decrease the duration of the vent portion, but drastically reduce the damage of the ability to no longer progress to cause death in normal mode. Apparently they were having a bunch of groups wipe in normal. Okay. Imperial City Prison. Lord Warden. Falling through the portal no longer requires a synergy to prevent fall, damage, death. So now you fall through the portal, and you're automatically just going to take a little bit of fall damage, but it's not going to be enough to kill you. It was bugged. This was bugged a little bit. You had to hit it just right. They kind of tried to fix it a little bit, but it wasn't 100%. The people that couldn't do it without the bug being there, you know, that's obviously something else we got to look into and help, you know, help them see why they needed to do it. But now that's no longer an option. And so now when you go to Lord Warden and you go into the portal, you just fall through and you won't die. A couple sound effects. Fate Trance Hollow. So this one, the Essence and Remnant effects will now be reapplied should you leave and return to a saved version. So good, you don't have to, you know, refarm, or I didn't think you could refarm them after they disappeared, but they won't disappear anymore. You will no longer receive 2 versions of the hunting speed. You no longer feel will no longer appear in multiple places at once, and reduce the health of enemies which have been empowered after completing the first arena. So when you got through with one wing, you went to the next one, the mobs were a little bit harder. So they reduced the health of those enemies just to, I don't know, maybe they weren't having enough clears, I don't know. Brimstone lava in the Brimstone Den now deals more damage. In addition, damage can no longer be avoided by sprinting or jumping. A lot of people were trying to cheese it by jumping. Because then, if you're not in the fire, it's not burning you, right? The orbs will no longer be available, and venturing too far into lava will be fatal until after the Magma Queen is defeated. Okay. Kind of like basically it's fire slaughterfish, right? Your character will no longer disappear when using the Brimstone Orb. And Way Shrining before the Pyre Lord will no longer have a chance to send you to his platform. Good. Hunter's Grotto, the telegraph for the Bristleback's Gatekeeper's Thrash ability will no longer persist after the ability is ended. This one, like, he always had the AoE in front of him. It was weird. Shade of the Grove encounter no longer has a chance to reset in situations where your character is knocked back while using Bolt Escape. In the Champion Circle, the Void Eruption ability telegraph now covers the entire Central Island. Apparently some people were hiding where they didn't need to be. Updated the timing of it, the voiceover during the final boss encounter. There was a desync there. Added additional sound effects to the few abilities during this encounter and reduced the health of all the void people that you have to fight on that last one. Alright, so some furnishings, dungeon and group content, false fabrication. The toxic coolant and secret projectiles will now correctly do increased damage to players affected by exhaustion and extreme exhaustion. That's a debuff you get in there, and if you get hit with those, you're going to take more damage. Maw of Lorkush, the Orbs of Torment no longer leave a usable corpse. Sorry, Necromancers. Sorry, Templars. Not working. Dungeon. Moonhunter Keep, the Direwolves, increase the range on the abilities. They're bigger, so they can see farther. Increase the damage of Lunge, but it no longer hits targets in an arc, nor causes a bleed. Okay, so you don't get a bleed, you just get hit with a bigger amount. Increase the damage and reduce the arc of the Nip ability, and the Nip also no longer causes a bleed. Gnash no longer hits targets in an arc, and increase the damage from Bite. Bite no longer has an interruptible telegraph, and it is used less frequently. So the Vicious Direwolves, all that above applies to them. They reduce the arc of the Dire Lunge, and the bleed is now only applied to targets who are not blocking. Harry will no longer affect targets in an arc. Okay. Strikers, the Assassinate will no longer affect targets in an arc. Cleavers added a telegraph for the Heavy Swipe, which will now also affect targets in an arc. And Quick Strike no longer affects targets in an arc. So a lot of arcs are being destroyed or removed, and a couple of them are getting, or Heavy Swipe is at least getting an arc. Thrall Ferals reduce the damage done by the leap, increase the cast time for the leap, and reduce the slash arc. Brigands increase the cast time and cooldown. And Transmogrify can no longer be chain cast. So they were bugged in that regards, where they were just constantly doing it. Stranglers increase the damage of Grapple, and Grapple is now applied when cast, though affected targets can now break free from this attack after being pulled to the Strangler. Interrupting the ability before the target is pulled to the Strangler prevents damage. So if you're not interrupted before you get there, or if it's interrupted before you get there, you won't take any damage. Once you get there, you can break free from it. You don't have to have someone else come interrupt them to break you free. The Hulking Werewolf reduce the damage and knockback distance of slam, increase the damage of swipe. Swipe no longer affects an arc, and reduce the effectiveness of the applied defile and snare. The Accursed Werewolf reduce the overall damage and reduce the buff applied to allies' damage done from blood scent. Okay. Jailer, increase the damage and cooldown of Bloody Cleave. Bloody Cleave no longer causes a bleed. Slash now causes a bleed and no longer arcs. Blood Moon's Mercy, it's an area effect, now moves slower, will no longer damage targets multiple times, and do reduced damage. Reduce the snare effect for targets hit, and the snare effect is now displayed in your active effects. Increases the initial damage of the area of attack, or area of effect, and the ability is now used less often. Bloody Geyser will now only target one player in normal mode. Reduce the damage and increase the interrupt window for the Bloody Execution in normal mode. Bloody Execution will now be used less often, and the animations will be more reliable. The Blood Colors will now do less damage in normal mode and reduce the damage of Crushing Leap. Hedge Maid's Guardian. Root Stomp. Enemies can no longer be targeted if they are affected by a Strangler's Grapple, and Stranglers can no longer use their grapple on players affected by Root Stomp. Root Stomp's going to be used less often, reduce the damage in normal, and the boss will no longer attempt to cast Root Stomp multiple times if the target is not found. Reduce the duration of Root Stomp, reduce the damage of Thorn Toss. Mooncolor, Lightning Rage will no longer be used in normal difficulty. Oh, great. So Lightning Rage is only going to be like Colors and Twins on BMO. Alpha Rage no longer affects multiple targets. Increase the initial damage and time of the interrupt. Alpha Rage. Shred now does reduce damage, and Mark of the Pack will now summon 2 wolves in normal difficulty. Reduce the buff effects from Prodding Shock, and reduce the damage from Lightning Storm, which will now be cast less often. The Archivist. Increase the damage from Shock. Shock will no longer bounce and will only affect a single target. Reduce the damage from the Blast, which no longer affects targets outside of its telegraphed radius. Again, getting hit while you're not standing stupid. Reduce the damage from werewolves added to the fight. Swipe no longer stack infected wound and major defile when multiple enemies are hit. And remove the extra damage bonus from monsters that transform into werewolf behemoths. Lycosa. The accursed werewolves now have less health and do less damage. Increase the damage from Claw Slash. Claw Slash no longer causes a bleed, and reduce damage from their Pounce and Lunge abilities. Their Lunge ability no longer causes a bleed effect, and you will no longer have a chance to become locked in combat prior to starting the encounter. I know this dungeon was a pug killer on Vet a lot of the times, so they've significantly nerfed it. I don't want to say it's like, cheesy mode, but they did nerf it a bit. All right, Frostfall. Here we go. Warlord Zogden. He will now use his fire jump less often. He will now summon 1 less goblin. He reduced the duration and damage of the fire pit potion. Reduce the duration of the stun when landing. Reduce the amount of times fire jump could fail to cast. Reckless charge now has a minimum distance he will charge. Reduce the damage from reckless charge against the charge target in the area of effects created by this ability. Reduce the damage of the heat shield or heat field in veteran mode, and raging winds now move slower. Oh, good, because you'd have to almost sprint around the sides when that happened. Vault Protector, the pug killer himself. Vault Protector will now travel to the center of the room to activate its shield. That's nice. The Searing Ray will more reliably be affected by the Vault Protector shield. Sometimes you would stand behind the shield and still get hit with the ray. Searing Ray can now be dodged or jumped over. Hallelujah. I mean, it is aimed chest high on most characters, and so why couldn't you just lie flat on the ground and let it pass you over? I don't know. Syrian Rays will now have a short activation time so you can react more easily before they start moving. So that way you can see which side is coming from. The shield now takes longer before doing damage to any player standing beside it. I've had it pop right on me as a tank and it start wailing on me. Steel Cyclone no longer applies stacks of bleed damage, and the bleed can be purged. Reduce the cone size of the axe ability, and Dwarven Spiders now do less damage and are no longer immune to crowd control abilities. Oh, great. And their static field ability is reduced in effectiveness, so you can chain them in now. Dwarven Spheres now do less damage and are no longer immune to crowd control abilities and no longer use the Steam Wall ability. So now you can pull the Dwarven Spheres in too. That was one of the hardest things about, trying to kill those spheres while you're also trying to, keep the boss in the middle. And so being able to chain them in will help because you'll kill those spheres with cleave. So that's great. Vault Protector will no longer play its light attack animation repeatedly after finishing the barrage and no longer has a chance to stand up early when shielded. This one's nice because, him moving to the center of the room. So when you do that one, if you've got him in the corner, you'd have a ray come at you and then have another ray, and you could potentially get both rays passing at the same point right in that middle. And so you pretty much get screwed. So that was nice. Moving him into the middle. It also allows you a little bit more time to burn him. I don't know if he'll be immune while he's moving there or not. But anyways. General combat and abilities. Gaining resistances for a particular type of damage no longer grants immunity to its respective status effect, and the adjusted racial passives that once granted immunities to make up this loss. Okay, so like the Dark Elves used to be immune to the burning status effect. So now you can be set on fire. Monsters no longer have a random chance to apply the status effect, such as burning or poisoned, and will only apply these statuses through intentional means when designed as such. So if, like the, in Depths of Malatar, where you've got the one boss that hides and stuff like that, he does that poison spit on you. You can get the poison status effect from that skill, but just because he's got dirt under his fingernails and he swipes you, you're not gonna get poisoned from that. This adjustment should lower combat variance in some encounters where you seemingly take extra damage that is outside of your ability to naturally counteract against overchargers who could apply the concussed status effect, causing you to take more damage from all sources. Fixing an issue where abilities, item sets, and passives that dealt damage had the incorrect chance to proc their respective status effects. In most cases, this is a reduction from 10% to the value appropriate to their attack. You can find more about the base chance to applying status effects under Help, Combat, Elemental status effects in the game. Fix an issue where casting another ability right after a failed ground targeted ability could cause you to become unable to cast another grounded. So, Caltrops, Endless Hail, Volley, all that stuff, yep. Player source synergies will now attempt to cull their animations whenever you activate other abilities to reduce animation errors. And werewolves will no longer animate when activating the synergy. So, fix an issue where multiple healing abilities and sets that were bound to AoE were not properly detected as healing over time. Fixed numbers issues of certain bonuses could unintentionally apply their effects to abilities or sets. Okay. Buffs and debuffs. There are now 3 new status effects for the following types: bleed, physical, and magic damage. Bleed has a chance to apply hemorrhaging. It deals slightly weaker damage than burning over 4 seconds and applies minor mangle to the target while affected. Minor mangle is a reduction in health, overall health pool of the individual by 10%. It's a one-time 10% reduction. So if they had 20,000 health and they got hit with hemorrhaging, they now have 18,000 health as their max until they purge that off. And then once they purge that off, the max goes up to 20,000 again, but they're still at whatever they were at. So it's not like they get that extra 2,000 back. Physical damage now is a chance to apply Sundered. It deals minor damage and applies Minor Breach for 4 seconds. Okay. Magic damage has a chance to apply Overcharged. It deals minor damage and applies Minor Magicka Steel for 4 seconds. So if you do a magic damage attack, you will apply Minor Magic Steel for 4 seconds to the enemy. So that's nice. I know a lot of them, like the Templars, have a lot of magic damage, so that'll be interesting. Fix an issue where some status effects such as disease, chilled, and concussed could fail to be recognized as status effects from sets and passives that stated while under the effect of a status effect. I believe one of the new sets says once you apply a status effect. Fix an issue where some immobilizes were improperly labeled as status effects. Okay, Minor Brittle. Here you go. This is a good one. Fixed an issue where this debuff could not be applied via the chill status effect if the target had a longer duration of minor maim available. Rogue Slash. Talons. Apply maim. So if you had like 3 seconds left on the chilled status effect and you just applied maim, right? Maim had a 10-second duration, you couldn't apply Minor Brittle because it thought Maim was brittle, and so it wouldn't apply it. So that's a good fix. All right, Dragon Knights. Lava Whip. Molten Whip. Fix an issue where the weapon and spell damage from this passive did not appear in your character sheet. Okay. Dark Talons. This ability and the Choking Talons morph now deal flame damage rather than magic damage. The Ignite synergy also deals flame damage rather than magic damage. Okay, good. Petrify. Shattering Rocks. This morph now heals you when the stun ends on the enemy, rather than causing the enemy's next attack to heal their target. This will also fix numerous issues where the heal belonged to the attacker and use their stats rather than yours. This is more of a PvP set or skill line, not used in PvE. So if they had really low healing on the person you just hit the Shattering Rocks with, that heal back to you would be reflective of theirs, and they want it to reflect off of yours. So, Necromancer, Gravelord, Frozen Colossus, fix an issue where this ultimate and its morphs would return as damage over time. Okay. Nightblade, Mark Target. Fix an issue where this ability and its morphs sourcing a major breach would be removed if the ability was recast while still actively on a target. So when you mark someone, the mark stays on the target, and so does the breach. You can mark another target and still leave the breach over there on that first target. All right, so this effect will now be considered 2 negative effects instead of one for major breach and the other for the mark that grants the caster resources if the mark target dies. Similar to other abilities with multiple effects such as Power of the Light. Okay. Shadow, Consuming Darkness. Hidden Refresh's heal now ticks once every second rather than half second and adjusts the total healing to remain roughly the same. Okay. While this energy is active, it now displays what it does when hovered over in your active effect tab. Surprise attack. This morph now applies the Sundered status effect on hit rather than reduce the target's physical resistance by 5% if you successfully flank. Okay. Triple Debilitate. This morph now applies an overcharged status effect because it's magic, and then you would get the Magicka Steel for the duration of the status effect. Okay. So instead of having Magicka Steel on them the entire duration, you now apply the overcharged status effect each tick. So you're going to get the Magicka Steel while the target is under that status effect. Once it drops off, you'll lose the Magicka Steel, but it'll reapply because it is magic damage. So Sorcerer, Dark Magic, Crystal Shards. Reduce the damage from this ability in the crystal fragments morph by approximately 2%. Daedric Minds, fix an ability where this was considered AoE, despite only hitting one target. Fix an issue with this ability could return its damage over time. Okay. Curse, fix an issue where this ability and its morphs could cause your next animation to hitch or jitter. Overload. Emperor Hands. Fix an issue where the heavy attacks from this ultimate and its morphs could return its damage over time in some cases. Okay. Here we go. Templar, Adric Spear, Burning Light. This passive now has a 3-second window between each stack, rather than a 1.2 window, to reduce the cadence in which you must consistently attack with an Adric Spear ability. Okay. So, jab spammers, basically, is what they're targeting. Dawn's Wrath, Solar Flare, reduce the cast time of the ability in Dark Flare to 0.8 seconds, down from 1 second. Reduce the damage done by 21%. Holy F-balls. Reduce the cost. I think that'll change. I think 21% is entirely too low. Destroying Light, the Light Weaver, fixed an issue where this passive did not properly grant its stated armor when you were channeling Rite of Passage in its morphs. Winter's Embrace under the Wardens. Frozen Gate. Fix an issue where the damage from this ability in its morph could return its damage over time. Okay. Weapon abilities. Here we go. Weapon abilities. Heavy attacking with a bow has a completely new reload animation. It's faster than before. 100% less jitters. The power of a sober mind does wonders on the battlefield. Okay. Accuracy. This passive now grants critical chance rather than weapon critical. Rank 2 now grants 6% critical chance, up from 5%. Now notice it says critical chance, not weapon critical chance. I wonder if that also will apply to your spells. Snipe, reduce the cast time of this ability down to 0.8 seconds. This ability and its morph now have a much faster, smoother animation. Reduce the damage done by 21%. Dear God. Also reduce the cost down to 2,700. Increase the travel speed slightly to help reduce the ability to fire off. Help to reduce the ability to fire off multiple projections before the original landed. A lot of times you would be able to fire off 2 snipes, and that's where the desyncs are happening, because they're getting off 2 before the first one even hits. Morph now ranks up focused aim and cost reduction rather than damage. Final cost is now 2430. Want to make these abilities less bursty in nature while helping their fluid usage in rapid succession, making them less potent at combining into deadly alpha strike attacks, and more potent when used in a rotation. Unfortunately, snipers are not... They're supposed to do the deadly alpha strikes. The snipers are for. Alright, dual wield. Here we go. A lot of changes here. Blade Cloak. Reduce the visual and audio effects of this ability to once every 2 seconds rather than every second to make it less obnoxious. It's still going to do the same amount of damage every second. Rend, the Thriving Chaos morph. The hitboxes more accurately matches its visual effects, resulting in a significant area of effect increase. Again, with the set we talked about earlier. Twin Blunt and Blade. Rework the passive. So axes now increase your critical damage and healing done by 4% per axe. Daggers now give 3.4 critical chance per dagger rather than 5% weapon critical chance. So again, this is a generic critical chance, so I'm wondering if it applies to your spells as well. Maces now give penetration, 1650 penetration rather than the 10% physical resistance modifier. Swords now grant 142 weapon damage per sword rather than the increasing damage done by 6%. So that's kind of a nerf to swords. They're removing the bleed passive or bleed chance, as it was the only effect that could carry over after activating. Maces also felt too punishing and awkward. It's true. Swords often didn't scale the way they appeared and seemed stronger than they were, so we moved into a more easily discernible power increase. Additionally, all of these effects now apply to any attack rather than only martial-based attacks to assist hybrid builds and general accessibility. So, okay, the passives, again, they do the crit chance, the crit damage of axes and daggers now applies to your spells as well. All right. Two-hand, rework the passive to grant more following bonuses. Axes now give critical damage and healing rather than apply bleed. And armor pen rather than ignore. And weapon and spell damage rather than increasing damage. So this has got weapon and spell damage here. I'm wondering if this has weapon and spell damage as well, and they just forgot to put the spell. Soul Magic, fix an issue where the ultimate its morphs could fail to trigger while in combat requirements. Vampire, Mist Form, fix an issue where this ability and its morphs would cancel themselves while falling. Funny when it happened. Fix an issue where these abilities could fail to grant proper immunity. Yeah, nothing like getting Taloned while you're in Mist Form. Fix an issue while attempting to use this ability after a cast time ability would cause you to enter and immediately leave the form. Okay. The Werewolf, here you go. Werewolf's getting a little nerf hammer. Fortitude, reduce the health and stamina recovery cap of this morph down to 333. So you got schwacked in half for your recovery. Pounce, fix an issue where the Carnage damage over time is not properly inheriting the damage increase from Carnage's rank up. This will result in an approximately 3.3 damage increase of this morph's bleed. Okay, so you got a buff there. Savage Strength. This passive now grants major resolve on both ranks rather than increasing your armor by 5 and 10,000. So I believe major resolve is the 10%. 10%? This was done to tone down some of the staggering defenses that werewolves could obtain with little to no effort. It's true. You can now kill werewolves, basically. Direwolves summoned from this ultimate would no longer taunt enemies and cause them to behave erratically, since they cannot be targeted. Alright, so, like I said, you're going to take a 10% reduction. I believe it's 10% reduction. Or it gives you 10%. I can't remember what that one is. Oh, it gives you 10% resistances. Major resolve. Yeah, increase your physical resistance by 5280. So that's a huge nerf. Almost in half. Alright. Alright. Guild, Fighters Guild. Banish the Wicked. This passive now grants you 1, 2, or 3 ultimate whenever you kill an enemy while you have a Fighters Guild ability slotted, rather than restoring the ultimate whenever you kill an undead Daedra or werewolf. So anytime you kill an enemy, if you have an ability slotted, you will get the ultimate. So I could see Barb Trap being on the front bar, or maybe Camo Hunters coming back. Put that on your front bar for the added damage. Because then when it's on the front bar, you'll have that. Barb Trap still be on the back bar. So if you kill things while you're on that bar, you'll get the ultimate. Okay. Entropy under the Mages Guild. Fix an issue where this ability and its morph could cause your next animation to hitch or jitter. And Spell Symmetry. Fix an issue where casting this ability could desync your magic bar. Assault. Continuous attacks. This passive now always grants Major Gallop when purchased at rank 1 or 2. So this is the one where you have to take a keeper resource. And if you do that, then you automatically get Major Gallop. Rapid Maneuvers no longer gives you Major Gallop since you have it right there. and reduce the cost of the ability down to 64.26. Okay. All right, here we go. Racial passives. Slightly adjusted some racial passives now that the champion points have been reworked, and a few standards within each of our set bonuses efficiency system have changed. For simplicity's sake, we have listed the final rank adjustments on each passive rather than each rank's adjustment. All right, Argonian. Resistance no longer grants immunity to disease status effect and once again grants an equal amount of poison resistance. Resourceful. You now get 1,000 max stamina and reduces the resources restored to 3125, down from 4K. I remember when this used to be like 6 to 8K every time you took a potion. So, you know, so let's see that. It's 3125 divided by 45 seconds. 625. You're looking at what, 310 or 312 recovery, basically is what it's working out to. Well, it is what it is. Threaten, spell attunement, increase the magical recovery granted to 130, up from 100. That's a little buff. Dark Elf, increase the max magic and stamina to 1910, up from 1875. And you no longer immune to the burning status effect. You get flame resistance. High Elf. This one is, man, I tell you, High Elf. All right, so Elemental Talent. This passive now also grants weapon and spell damage. Recharge reduces the restore on the passive to 625, down from 640. So you got a slight decrease on the passive. However, the passive now works from any ability used. So if you're rocking a two-hander and you do any damage with it, you're going to get 625. Right? No longer does it have to be only your Templar or your Nightblade or whatever. Now, anything that you do, any type of damage you do, or no, that's anytime you cast one. So anytime you use an ability, whether it's a buff or whatnot, you get 625. Imperial Red Diamond. This passive no longer restores health, magic, and stamina whenever you deal direct damage. Crap. But it increased the cost reduction for all abilities to 6%. So we doubled our cost reduction. So that's nice. Khajiit. Feline Ambush. Increase the critical damage and healing done from this passive to 12%. And increase the max health, magic, and stamina to 915. Khajiit is going to be the crit king. So for all you out there who don't think Khajiits can heal, they have a passive that allows them to crit heal. Nord. Resist frost. You're immune to the chilled status effect no longer. Now you have frost resistance, 4620. Which again is slightly less than the major resolve. Rugged. Reduce the armor granted from this passive to 2600. That's a significant chunk of change. But they're still going to be good. Orc. Man, Orc got some love. Brawny, reduce the max stamina granted from this passive to 1000. So cut in half. This passive now grants weapon and spell damage. An Unflinching Rage. The passive now heals for 2125 health when you deal damage once every 4 seconds, rather than healing for 600 health when you deal damage with a weapon attack once. So, yeah. I mean, it's basically, it's a little over 500 per second that you're going to get. So, I mean, it's not a huge one, but it's nice because it's deal damage, right? Not just with weapon attacks, any damage you do. It's not direct damage, it's not just AoE damage, any damage you do. I wonder if status effects, burning, will burning also proc that? Could you imagine that with crit surge and pale order, right? I could definitely see some mag orcs coming out. Redguard, Adrenaline Rush. Increases stamina restored from this passage to 1005. Passage now procs on any damage done rather than direct damage. So again, everybody's getting, any type of damage rather than, a specific type of damage. The Wood Elf. Hit with the Banhammer again. Hunter's Eye. Movement speed and armor penetration granted from this passive no longer requires you to roll dodge to gain it. Great. So you used to have to roll dodge to get your penetration and movement speed. But now they've also decreased it down to 5%. So that's got cut in half. And decreased the armor penetration in half almost. And you're no longer granted the poison status effect immunity. Now, it grants you an equal amount of diseased resistance. I thought they were poison and Argonians were diseased. Anyways. So, itemization and item sets. Here we go. Sorry guys, this is a long one done. Okay, so reduce the single stat line of critical chance to 657. Reduce the perfected abilities augmentation stat lines to 526. Berserking Warrior. Reduce the amount of weapon critical gained to 241 per stack. Dragon Guard Elite now stacks up to 10 times, once every 0.5 seconds, up to 5 times every 1 second. And reduce the weapon critical stacks to 275, down from 475. Overall, this will result in an increase. So, again, just the numbers themselves, simple mathematics, you're gonna have more damage with this new Dragon Guard Elite. Eagle Eye and Wrath of the Imperium reduce the critical chance of these 2-piece sets to 1652. Leviathan and Mother Sorrow reduce the critical rating to 1528. Mechanical Acuity increase the cooldown of this set to 21 seconds. Ouch. Yeah, it's just 3 more seconds, but damn. And, the critical ratings, they brought them all down for, that's the 2-piece, but the 5-piece, I mean, that took a significant hit. I believe these are 3-piece sets, and these are 5-piece sets. So Medusa, reduce this set's 5-piece bonus of spell critical to 892, down from 900. Again, this is higher due to the 5-piece being focused on a minor buff. Major buff. Minor force. Slime Crawl, reduce the 1-piece bonus of the critical chance down to 771. This is higher than the normal due to the 2-piece bonus being a minor buff, which you already may have access to. Zogdans, increase the weapon critical per stack. Critical chance was sourced very abundantly in the clear winner in terms of chaseable stats for endgame damage, while having natural counters and operational costs in PvP. The main source of the issue was the fact that the standard rating of critical chance granted was too high, meaning item sets and passives that granted it were out of line when compared to other stats like weapon and spell damage or penetration. With these adjustments, we expect many builds to have reduced critical chance rating, while also helping tone down the effectiveness of critical damage and healing, unless your build goes out of the way to specifically chase those stats now. You have to build for it. In an effort to combat against the effectiveness of cheesing trials, these sets now require you to be in combat for the 5-piece bonus to activate. Halls of Fabrication unique sets, Armor Master, Meritorious Service, Moon Dancer, Shroud of the Lich, Spectre Eye, Tooth of Locustes, and the Undaunted Infiltrator, and Weaver. These buffs are no longer retained if you unequip the number of pieces. Balorg and Stiggin. You know, people were basically pre-buffing, popping an ultimate, and having all these buffs running, then instantly on PC having the dressing room, I believe it is, where you can instantly swap out your armor and putting on the other set so they could go into the fights with these huge damage buffs on them. All right, crafted. Adept Rider. This set now permanently grants Major Gallop and Major Expedition when worn, rather than granting Major Evasion while mounted. So with this rework, we expect this set to remain niche in functionality, but far more beginner and crafter friendly by helping traverse the game world, especially at lower level, and cannot attain these buffs easily. So this is now your crafting and harvesting set. Dungeons and Arena. Flaws. The set now grants up to 129 weapon damage on its 5-piece bonus. Decrease the weapon damage granted per bleed on the enemies down to 3. These changes were done to make up for the fact that axes no longer apply bleed, and the addition of the hemorrhaging status effect. With these adjustments, the set should be far less swingy in performance and shine when specialized on bleed builds with less variance. Alright. Flame Blossom fixed an issue where this set did not properly scale with damage over time modifiers. Iron Blood fixed an issue where this set's snare could stack on very specific snares. Automaton. The set now clarifies it also works with bleed damaging abilities, since this is a new damage type, but the set was not originally designed to keep that damage type in mind. Okay. Alkosh. The armor reduction portion of this set now scales 100% off your weapon damage and caps at 3,000. Fix an issue where this set was not properly labeled as a proc. The previous adjustments of helping this set shine more when utilized on stamina damage dealers missed the mark. So we're converting it to something far less variance and total power. Note that the value is still relatively achievable on a tank build if you wish to run it, but that may need to run some extra weapon damage when they normally might not reach it. Alright, PvP sourced. This should be a Lessing's Order, not a Lessing's Bulwark. The set now has a cap of 1320 health recovery, and Ravager fixed multiple issues where this set could proc off abilities that did not attempt to reduce target's resistance. Monster Mass, Selene. This set no longer has a 15% chance to proc and is now guaranteed to proc on any non-proc melee damage. Increase the cooldown to 6 seconds and reduce the damage dealt by 1,500. We expect lower DPS on the high-end builds, utilizing rapid hitting abilities, melee abilities such as jabs or rapid strikes, while helping it perform better on lower end with builds that utilize singular hit spammables like surprise attack. So basically, if you're a jab spammer, it's going to give you lower DPS, but if you're a rapid strikes, or not a rapid strikes, a surprise attack, you probably do better. And Tremor Scale. Fix an issue where the set's physical resistance reduction was considered a snare in some cases. Alright, some animations. Wearing the Night Slayer breeches will no longer make your character sound like a creaky bow. Alright, some other things. Dragonstar Arena. The Vampire Lord will now openly play her Blink Strike animation once, no matter how many enemies are hit by that ability. Banish Cells 2, High Kinlord Relis will no longer flicker before teleporting. Blessed Crucible, monsters in the Frozen Arena can no longer be damaged before opening the gate. Grotto 1, the Goblin Archers no longer show a telegraph on their attacks. So after you beat the one Warlord, they become your friends. You always used to see them firing arrows, and you like, I'm standing in red. Well, now you're no longer going to see that red. So, Ulolorg, the Hungry's terrifying roar no longer causes your character to flee. So basically you're just going to cower in fear like the normal fear is. Pelangar will now jump reliably into or enter the fight space as you enter into it. Varain will now use slash ability more often. And Pelangrand will no longer remain invisible after the fiendish hallucinations are defeated. Wayrest 2. The Risen Scorching Flames no longer forces your character to flee. Again, you're going to cower. The Ghost Haunting Spectre also will cause your character to cower rather than flee. Sanctum Ophidian, all scaled court enemies will now correctly add into the fight when intended. The Manticore, the Vortex now correctly displays the target of the ability at the center of the portal that is opened. And Stonebreaker. Player characters that die due to Stonebreaker while afflicted with the spreading poison no longer damage nearby enemies with poison blast when they die. So when you die, you can't spread the AIDS. Couple little things. Oh, there. Okay, 2 identical pieces of gear will no longer be counted together when looking at the item tooltip within the bag or bank if one of the pieces has been retraded into a different trait. So if you transmuted it from, like, say, sturdy to divines, sometimes it wouldn't read it as part of the set, and so it would add it to the set. So you now have 6 pieces instead of 5, and so, or you'd have only 4, and it would show you had 5. So, okay, and then updated the name of several ice staves because they were using the not quite term of frost staff. Again, some of these are just stuff we can't look at because we don't have them. They moved where some of the housing stuff is in your UI. So you'll be able to preview stuff from your inventory rather than having to learn it before you do that. And added searches to various inventory screens. So if you're looking in your bag or you're looking in your bank for leeching, it should be able to pull up all the leeching that you have in your bank or bag. So that's nice. So yeah, that's the PTS notes. It was a long one, but again, there's a lot to go over because of the champion point rework. The PTS took a long time to get downloaded and updated, so I'll be on the PTS doing some videos this weekend. We'll definitely do a deep dive on all of the champion points, some of the armor stuff that's out here too, the changes to it, the passives to the characters, the racial passives, and the armor or the weapons. So, there's a lot of good stuff to come. Again, this is the very first week of the PTS patch notes. As usual, nothing that's said in the first week of patch notes makes it to live. Hardly anything does. So there will be balance. There will be increases and decreases and increases and decreases on all this different stuff. However, they are trying to get everything more in line and more in keeping with what they're dealing with as far as their standardization. So, they may stay the same or they may increase their standard base. So, we'll have to see with that. But the biggest one that I know everyone's looking into is the champion points. We'll make a video on how to do all that, and we'll get it out there. So be sure and like the video, leave a comment below what you thought was important or interesting, what you want me to look at when I go onto the PTS. Subscribe to the channel so you get more videos or notifications. Hit the bell, you get notified when I put out new videos on this. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch. And so I'm also possibly looking at another streaming site but I can't announce it yet. Not ready yet. So, just thank you everybody for watching. Stay safe, have fun, and remember, wherever you go, adventure awaits.